Hi there. How's it going?
Mr. Jackson has been repeatedly advised by those who stood to make fortunes in his business affairs to pay money rather than face certain false allegations. As a result, many years ago, he did pay money rather than litigate 2 false allegations that he had harmed children. Mr. Jackson now realizes that the advice he received was wrong. He should have fought these actions to the bitter end and vindicated himself. The recent publicity about these settlements is unfair and damaging to him, his family, and his dedication to the world's children. The charges he faces are false and will be battled in a court of law within our justice system. He is innocent and will be vindicated.
Mr. Mesereau, can Mr. Jackson give a copy of this statement?
Peace.
Thank you.
We are going to find out the latest in just a moment from NBC's Mark Mullen. Mark, are you there?
I am indeed, and we'll continue to look at these live pictures as Michael Jackson and many of his family members, including Janet, LaToya, Jermaine, his mother, many others are here, all wearing white in a show of solidarity as they actually take a court recess in this pretrial hearing. They're actually coming back for a little bit more. Let us give you a little bit more context about what Tom Mesereau, the lead counsel for Michael Jackson, was talking about. You may remember, if you follow this case, or even if you haven't, there's been so much publicity surrounding it. There's a gag order in place which essentially forbids attorneys on both sides from talking directly about this case. Why did Mesereau address reporters here, and why did he get permissions? Well, in large part it was because of a Dateline NBC investigation broadcast which essentially detailed how Michael Jackson paid just over $2 million to a second boy in 1993 to settle an accusation of sexual misconduct. In cases like this, which generate a lot of publicity, many times lawyers, even with gag orders, will seek special permission from a judge to be able to talk about that and address something as serious as that. You all heard this along with us, and essentially he continued on behalf of Michael Jackson to deny any wrongdoing. He did acknowledge that he has paid money to settle cases over the years, but also essentially said that Michael Jackson had done nothing wrong, that he had regretted making those settlements, and essentially he was prompted by the record companies for whom he worked to settle this so there would not be negative publicity. You'll hear some of the crowds as we look at the pictures as well of Michael Jackson supporters. 5 o'clock this morning, 3.5 hours before this court date, Michael Jackson waving to his fans, but restrained, no rooftop dancing this time. But fans out here at 5 o'clock this morning, almost a lottery, if you will, for some of the fans who wanted to get inside the courtroom and witness what that was all about. For the record, just so we tell you briefly, legally, what this is all about, is that Michael Jackson's attorneys are trying to get some evidence seized by police at a defense investigator's office thrown out. The reason why this got so much publicity today is for a couple of reasons. Number one, Michael Jackson, who was not required to be here, wanted to be here as the mother of the boy who accused him of sexual molestation, testified as part of this hearing. Family friends said it was not sort of a stare down. Michael Jackson, they say, was not here to put pressure and try and be a bully and intimidate the mother who testified for about 2.5 hours, but they said he wanted to be here simply out of legal interest and also along with his family to show support as well. For her part, let's at least briefly, as we wait for this family to drive away, they're supposed to be going to a local restaurant to have lunch before coming back here. The mother, for her part, let's describe essentially what she talked about. She's described as Jane Doe. Her identity, to protect that of her son, is not being revealed. Michael Jackson waving to fans outside and giving the peace sign. She was actually quite animated on the stand and even feisty at some point. Very often she added extra comments whenever she was asked questions. I'll give you one example. one time Tom Mesereau, the attorney, asked her, he said, quite frankly, he says, do you know why you are at this hearing today? Do you know what this hearing is all about? Her response was, I don't know, this is just more torture for me and my kids, which got some snickers. What was really interesting to watch some of this questioning of the mother of the accuser this morning was to see the strategy that Tom Mesereau was trying to undertake. Yes, they were trying to essentially get at the fact of the matter of this particular case, but you could also tell that it was an effort to question her credibility, because clearly the mother of the accuser is sort of the fuel behind these criminal charges. Let me just give you an example of some of the questions that Jackson's lawyer, Tom Mesereau, wanted to ask the mother but was not allowed to in court, and I'll just rattle some of these off. Number one, did you consult with lawyers about Michael Jackson's behavior with your children before you had even met Michael Jackson? Did you accuse your ex-husband of child molestation at one point and of false imprisonment? Did you have trouble paying your rent? Did you tell the sheriff's office that you're leaving it up to your children at the age of 18 whether or not they want to sue Michael Jackson? None of these questions were allowed to be asked, but they were able to ask some other questions as they are trying to basically paint a picture of the mother of the accuser basically being a money grubber and that this case is nothing but money.
Mark, let me just jump in here. As you mentioned,
Sure.
All eyes were on the interaction between Michael Jackson and the mother of the accuser. Can you give us some description of what the demeanor was between Michael Jackson and the mother of the accuser when she took the stand?
Michael Jackson's family was in the first two rows. For his part, Michael Jackson was actually at the defense table. For the first portion of this morning's hearing, he was leaning forward, very attentive. He was a bit more relaxed as the day went on. Her posture was really interesting, very animated, as we have been reporting. Before she even testified this morning, she did the sign of the cross by herself. And what was interesting is when she came back after the break, and I'm going to just talk over some of the demonstrators back here. What she did after the break was she actually appeared to be praying for a good while before it even started again. She held her own. I mean, she was very feisty. She did not answer a lot of the questions directly. I mean, sometimes including even some of the attorneys and even the judge smiled at some point. She was not a very cooperative witness. We'll leave it to the legal analysts to figure out how much good she did for this case, depending on what side of the table that you sit on. And after lunch, we'll also hear basically a decision about the matter at hand. Whether or not
you also mentioned
this evidence...
Mark, I'm sorry. I was going to say they also mentioned that Michael Jackson legally had no obligation to be at this pretrial conference, and that there was a lot of speculation that he was there to stare down the mother of the accuser. Was there any evidence to support that?
That would be difficult, and I'm not being sarcastic or sardonic by saying this, but Michael Jackson wore sunglasses throughout much of this, so it would be hard to tell whether he was staring down. However, we did ask that question of a family friend who's also a consultant with MSNBC, and basically he said no. He said the family has heard those reports, those accusations, and they say that that is not true, that they simply want to be up here as a show of solidarity. Michael Jackson specifically wanted to be up here personally to show sort of a legal interest in this case. Everybody can draw their own inferences, but at least for their part, they're here simply out of interest and because Michael Jackson has a right to be here, even though legally he was not required to be here.
All right, NBC's Mark Mullen taking a recess from the courthouse in Santa Maria where Michael Jackson's pretrial hearing just took a lunch break.